also very proud to have many of my friends here with me today for a very serious and important issue that merits our attention not only today but tomorrow, and my suspicion is it will necessitate our attention as we move forward over the next few decades. We are here today because this is Dr. King's birthday celebration. I would say the eve of it. We're not there yet, but we're close. And Dr. King has given us reason to believe that his name should be associated with this event. He is the person who reminded us that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And we have a threat to justice that we have to give some attention to, as well as the injustice associated with the topic that I shall introduce in just a moment. I'm also very honored to ask that my colleagues and my friends who are with me give brief statements. We are all giving statements, but I'd like for their statements to be brief because there is an event that we'll be attending in just a few moments. Today, dear friends, we're here on this day of service to address what many call modern-day slavery. Modern-day slavery is a term that has been defined in polite society as human trafficking. Human trafficking in polite society does not quite express what happens to people who find themselves caught up in what we call modern-day slavery. Human trafficking is the trade of human beings, especially women and children, for the purpose of extortion. Many persons are not aware that human trafficking involves extortion. Many of the people who find themselves victims of human trafficking are brought into the trafficking organization with things that they have done willingly sometimes, wittingly, sometimes unwittingly, such that they can be extorted. Persons will invite them to do things online such that they will expose themselves. And they use that online opportunity to extort persons and get them to come into the human trafficking ring. It is also forced labor. Many people are brought into this country, brought to Houston, Texas, and forced to work. They are forced to work, and what they make as their wages, they have to either share or surrender to the person who is what I would call the enslaver, or the person who is extorting them. It is also rape. Many of the persons who are engaged in this process, forced into it, men, women, children, are raped. It's a sad thing to have to say. It's a sad commentary on our time, on the behavior of people. But it is a fact that what we call human trafficking in polite society amounts to rape of persons who, for reasons that sometimes are inexplicable, find themselves being trafficked. It is also sexual slavery. We've mentioned how persons are forced to engage in conduct that they don't choose to initially, but after they have been inculcated into this unfortunate circumstance by persons who have dastardly principles. They perform these dastardly deeds. They themselves are dastards. They find themselves being sexual slaves. It is also commercial sexual exploitation. There are some countries where persons are, by virtue of the state, forced into human trafficking. Many places around the globe where persons will come to a site to work and they can have their passports taken from them, they can't leave the country, and they're forced to work for less than honorable wages, if any wages at all. And finally, sadly, I have to say that what we in polite society call human trafficking can ultimately become the demise of a person. People have their lives taken from them because they desire to no longer participate, or they happen to be engaged with persons who find abusive things to be a part of the activity, and that activity activity can sometimes amount to a person losing his or her life. So today, let me share some statistical information that I believe would be quite important. According to the International Labor Organization, $150 billion in profits were generated from forced labor alone in 2014. $150 billion in profit. 21 million victims were trapped in modern-day slavery in 2012. 14.2 million, or 68%, were exploited for labor. 4.5 million, 22%, were sexually exploited. 2.2 million, 10%, were exploited in state-imposed forced labor. This is what I was speaking of when I indicated that there are states, nation states, that are exploiting people and bringing them into forced labor. According to the Polaris Project, a nonprofit that combats human trafficking, Texas has the second most reports of sex trafficking cases in the United States. The second most reported. There are some who rank Texas number one, depending on who you're evaluating, it could be number one, but second most reports of sex trafficking cases. Houston has the highest number of reported child sex trafficking cases in the country. Houston, Texas, our home. And of course, we want to make sure that we do all that we can, those of us who are assembled here today, people of goodwill, in the name of Dr. King, in the name of eliminating the injustice that is occurring right here in our city. We want to do all that we can to eliminate sexual human trafficking. Eliminate it totally, completely, and absolutely. We're not interested in lowering it. Yes, lowering it is a step along the way, lowering the numbers of persons who are actually forced into this type of activity. But that's not the goal. Elimination is the goal. And our goal, we take seriously, and we plan to do all that we can to eliminate sex trafficking. Earlier this year, there was a new law enacted in the state of Texas, and there's someone who will speak about this in greater detail, to increase penalties for sex trafficking offenses around schools. And this is called the no trafficking zones. Friends, this is why we're here at this school, because it is a no trafficking zone. But it's important for the people who are here to understand what a no trafficking zone is, how people find themselves entangled in this web of horror, this web of dastardly deeds. It's important for them to understand. And we have people here today who are going to explain to my constituents, to the mothers and fathers who may be here, and children, young people, how this can impact them, and how innocent persons will find themselves engaged in something that they never thought they'd be a part of. This is a no trafficking zone, and we're here to not only make it a no trafficking zone, but to make sure that the people who are here don't find themselves being trafficked into something that they never intended to be a part of. I want to thank the principal of this school for being here today, and thank him for all that he has done to make sure that our children who attend this school are safe, that they have every opportunity to succeed, which means that they have to have every opportunity to avoid those who would engage in human trafficking. And he has done an outstanding job of this. So I would like to have him say just a few words about this school and any aspect of what we are calling to the attention of the public today, this human trafficking on this MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. We'll ask Principal Everett Hare, Sr., to come over and give us a few comments.
Good afternoon. My name is Everett Hare, Sr., the proud principal here at Worthing Early College High School. As Congressman shared, it's very important that we take the time to make sure we educate our students and give them and equip them the tools so that they are able to identify, recognize, and be part of the preventative care that we need so that trafficking is not taking place in the Sunnyside community. The more that we empower our students and give them the knowledge of things to recognize and be on top of, we're going to help cut down those numbers. The data that was shared is scary for us all to live here in this Houston area. And so we want to do our part in making sure that this next generation of emerging leaders that will be in society, they help recognize it, they're aware and attentive to it, and they're also a big part of preventing. So Worthing Early College High School will be a part of the No Trafficking Zone. We want to make sure our students share that empowerment with students all across the greater Houston area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for all that you do to help our children. We have with us Dr. Prieta Stallworth. She is a trustee with the Houston Community College, and she has been engaged not only in this activity but many others, but I'm very proud of the role that she has assumed in helping us with those who are being trafficked. Children should not be subjected to this kind of environment where they can be subject to being trafficked. And I commend you, Dr. Prieta, as we call you affectionately, for what you have done. Would you kindly give us a few words?
Thank you, Congressman Green. Houston Community College is committed to students moving through our campuses in safe environments. We'd like to thank Dr. Nisi Hamilton for bringing to our attention human trafficking and how it operates in the college system. And as a result of her wisdom, Houston Community College has moved forward with its policing in order to minimize and eliminate human trafficking on our college campuses. We want to say that if we can do this, every college campus can do this. We appreciate having a no traffic zone here at Worthing Early College High School, which is part of the Houston Community College system. And we intend to expand this very same program to every campus in our district. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Congressman Green, for drawing congressional attention to this issue. Thank you, Principal Hare, for drawing this attention to our K-12. And now Houston Community College will do their part to make sure that our students continue to be safe, and our parents appreciate the fact that their students can move through our campuses with no problems and no regrets. Thank you.
Thank you for all that you do. And we're proud now to ask my partner against crime to join us. She is a member of City Council. This is her council district, Dr. Carolyn Evans Shabazz, the councilwoman for District D.
Thank you, Congressman Green. Along with the name of Martin Luther King being emblazoned, I believe that yours should be right up there as well for the fine work that you are doing in this community, especially around this issue. And so certainly I actually worked at Worthing High School back in my career days for about 10 years. And so I'm very familiar with this area. And so I'm going to suggest certainly that poverty, food insecurity, as well as the lack of educational opportunity attributes to this type of activity going on, which is why it's vitally important that we have advocates such as Nisi Hamilton and certainly my former colleague, Dr. Prieta Stallworth, on board. Because certainly we know that when people are given the opportunities to better enhance their lives, then they don't fall into the human trafficking arena. And so certainly I'm so very glad as a council member for the district, what I call the District of Destination, that I'm being allowed to participate here. And I certainly want to offer whatever I can in city resources to be able to combat this, because as the congressman says, we want to eradicate this. And so I certainly thank everyone that's present, in particular you, Congressman, because you are always on the forefront, and I really appreciate the pattern and the high bar that you set. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We greatly appreciate you. And if you would be so kind as to return my notes to me.
Oh my God, did I take them? That's it on the floor. That's it. I'm sorry, that's like me. That's
Quite all right, quite all right.
Pick up everything in the way.
Okay, next we will hear from someone who has a great deal of knowledge about the issue of human trafficking, especially as it relates to the no trafficking zones. This is a person that I've had the opportunity to get to know quite well, and we have coalesced and worked together on at least one other project, and we have many more that we believe that we'll be working together on. Jacqueline Aluto is the president and founder of the No Trafficking Zone, NTZ. Jacqueline.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everyone who is here to combat and prevent human trafficking happening in this state. On any given day, there are over 79,800 youth trafficked in the state of Texas. 79,800 youth. A state Senate survey was done, and 55% of those youth were either groomed, lured, exploited, or introduced on their high school campus. And so one of the things that our nonprofit does at No Trafficking Zone is not only do we recover and work with domestic minor sex trafficking victims, but we study the trafficking trends to find out where they are being targeted and recruited and preyed on the most. We found in our own study that it was school systems, and we found it alarming that 55% of kids that were sex trafficked, it was attached to their schools. So I want to give you a few stories of some of the families and victims that we have been blessed to work with. Courtney Litback was trafficked out of her high school in Katy. She met her trafficker on her high school campus in Katy. She was trafficked all the way to Las Vegas. She was labeled a bad kid, a troublemaker, a kid that was on drugs, because people don't understand commercial sexual exploitation. People do not understand that once you are groomed and recruited, your coping mechanisms and what your predator gives you are drugs to control you even more. Letty Serrano, at 15 years old, after being recovered, committed suicide because she could no longer deal with what had happened to her. Maddie's movement and her mother, who was fighting, a 15-year-old girl who was recruited out of her high school by another girl in junior high, was found with bruises all over her body and her head. Julia Wells in Dallas, who had autism, died 1 week before her prom. She was pushed out of a moving truck by her trafficker. None of these families have gotten justice, which is why the No Trafficking Zone was created. SB 1831, No Trafficking Zones, had to have been created because parents and victims need to have rights. It has to be a felony to traffic a child. This is the sex slave trade. The victims let us know that the traffickers knew to come to school because it was easier to traffic them from school than from their homes. And so we want every parent, teacher, educator, administrator, survivor leader to understand that you have rights, that there is this state bill passed, and that you will now be protected, and you should get justice, and you need to fight for justice. So I want to thank the school and the principal for really doing this. This is so important. Education is so important. We need to prevent, combat, and eradicate child sex trafficking. Thank you so much. And thank you, Congressman Green, for really taking a lead on this initiative, for working with us so much and making sure that schools across the nation become no trafficking zones. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we will have someone that I've had the pleasure to work with as well. She had an outstanding event to help persons understand the realities associated with human trafficking, because as I've indicated, human trafficking is a term for polite society. She understands the in-depth aspects of this. And I'm honored to ask Dr. Nisi Hamilton, the CEO of Nisi's Network, to give us commentary.
Thank you so much, Congressman. Thank you so much, Congressman Al Green. Thank you so much, Principal Hare. Thank you so very much, ACC, as well as Dr. Brietta Vanderbilt-Stallworth. Thank you very much, Dr. Carolyn Shabazz. And thank you so much for our advocates and our legislators that are working alongside with survivor leaders, Jacqueline and Ludo. I am Dr. Nisi Hamilton, and I do have a nonprofit called Nisi's Network Incorporated. And I just want to say that all systems that were mentioned on today can make any child a victim of human trafficking. And I really appreciate Dr. Carolyn Shabazz's statement about mentioning those food deserts. You know, trafficking doesn't look the same way we think it ought to look when we're reading the books, when we're watching TV, when everything is televised and moving parts, stories are missing, pieces that are very imperative, they go amiss. And what we do understand that there are a certain percentage of children that fall by the wayside, like the prostitutes' children, like the actual pimps that are arrested children, like the children of the actual survivors. They fall through the cracks because there's an assumption that these children will pick up the habits of their mothers or their fathers or the system in which they grew up in. Students are clandestine targets of sex and labor trafficking. 91% of students actually know their groomers before they're actually trafficked. Only 9% of them are strangers. Right now, there are 35,000 students in Texas that are going to school near illicit massage parlor less than 1,000 feet away from the school. So I want you to consider the child that's at school that may be hungry and can't get food, and they're fighting their way out like an adult would, but they don't know how and they can't say anything. Or maybe the child that comes to school and they smell bad and they can't take baths because their mother is being trafficked, or because the mother's child is being held hostage, and certain things and desires and needs that are available for the mom and for the children, they're being withheld hostage because mom has to do whatever that trafficker is telling her to do in order for that child to get whatever it is that they need. I don't want you to see this as something that just happens overnight. It takes time. The highest growing type of trafficking right now is familial trafficking, and I don't see a lot of people talking about it as much as we should, but we ought to be. Human trafficking is real. The average age of a young girl being trafficked today is 12. And I used to say 14 because it happened to me at 14. And the system in which I was trafficked from was through foster care. So I want you to understand that if you love us the way you say you love us, if you see us the way you say you see us, then I need you to read me. I need you to read the congressman, and I need you to read every student that is here. I need you to read Principal Hare. I need you to read the students the same way you tell us to read books. Read human trafficking and know the signs. My name is Dr. Nisi Hamilton. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much for your words of wisdom. We have one additional guest with us today, affectionately known as the mayor of Sunnyside. She is a very dear friend, and she's always concerned about the community. Just how basic she is, and you will probably find her associated with it in some way, trying to make the community a better place. We'll ask our dear friend, Sergeant Hines, to hold the word.
Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Congressman, for allowing me to speak out today. Nisi Hamilton and others on the platform. I am the president of the board of the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, which is TCO, and also the founder of Junior Achievers, Texas Youth Against Drugs and Crime. You can find me on many occasions here in this neighborhood, in the schools, the communities, and collaborating with police and law enforcement everywhere on behalf of children in this community. As close as the fiesta is on color, the 4600 block of Cullen and Wilmington. You can find people soliciting families for their children asking to buy them. So I am in support of what is happening here. I am ever grateful to Worthing, the pride of Sunnyside, for always opening its doors to do what is right in the sight of God. And if people would practice morality, more and integrity, a lot of the things that are happening today, we would be able to be aware of it. God bless you, and thank you so much. Thank you again, Congressman, for allowing me to be here. God bless you.
Thank you. Well, as you can see, there's been a certain amount of solemnity associated with this event. We take this very seriously, and this is not one of those days where we're going to be in a celebratory mood. This is a day for us to be in deep contemplation and to understand the horrors of what's called human trafficking, and to really explain what it is when we're no longer in polite society. Rape, extortion, forced labor, and sometimes even the taking of life. Or, as was indicated, persons who commit suicide, take their own lives. This is a very serious issue, and we plan to, as best as we can, with a very respectful and responsible tone, explain this to the young people who will be assembled here today. I thank all of my friends who have participated in the press event, and now we will entertain questions from the press. Thank you so much, press, for being here today. It means a lot to know that this message can get to the masses, because if it is contained within this building, we will have done a service here. But if it gets beyond the building to the masses, we can then start the process, or continue, I should say, the process of the elimination beyond the walls of this building. So please help us to get the message to the masses. I welcome the first question.
I don't have any questions.
All right, with no questions, then just a final word. Friends, please take seriously what your young people are doing. Be involved and engaged in their lives. Know who they are associated with. I had the opportunity to meet the young lady that was called to our attention by Jacqueline. And Courtney, you would just never understand how it could happen to her until she explains it to you. And then you have a better understanding of why it's so important to look out for each other. So thank you one and all for being here, and I thank the press for getting this message to the masses. Thank you.